Hi, I'm Matt Smith, and welcome to Insightpool TV. We're here with Adam Naide, social media leader at Cox Communications, and we're going to talk about ROI in social media and how a lot of companies really define that and justify it moving forward. So, Adam, if you want to just give us a little brief background on yourself, how you got into social, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds good, Matt. Well, thanks for having me. So I started in social basically when it started in 2008 for big brands. And I was at CNN at the time, and I was in a new department that was called audience engagement. As we were trying to figure out what to do, social media just took off. And that's when Twitter really kind of started hitting its growth spurt. So I had the great fortune at that time to teach Anderson Cooper how to tweet, be a part of big news events like the royal wedding and the first Obama election. So really kind of grew up with social media on the news side and live TV side. And then after a few years, I moved over to Cox Communications, which is where I am now.
Gotcha. I think one thing that's really interesting is looking at social and its evolution, going from something that is more of an experiment, hey, we've got this kid in the garage and yeah, just stay over there and do the tweeting and we'll talk about it later. But I feel like now it's starting to become more of a defined department with larger teams really expanding out. And with that, it seems like that need for justifying ROI is bubbling up. How do you guys really define that at Cox, and how do you think that is applicable across all these different organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the early days of social media, it was good enough to have a lot of Facebook fans and to engage them and to tweet from brand accounts. Now it's at the point where executives are asking tougher questions like, what am I getting for this investment? So it's no different at Cox. I mean, we're a bottom line company. So I would say that there's really three ways we drive ROI and business value from social. The first one is really about driving demand for our products and services and how we use social to do that. We can talk more as we go. The second one is about driving word of mouth at scale, positive word of mouth at scale and loyalty. And the third one is about increasing our social share of voice.
Gotcha. So when you talk about social share of voice, how do you guys measure that? Is it based on brand advocacy, influencer relations? What's the best way to kind of put a cap on that?
Absolutely. So I would refer to social share of voice is relative to my competitors, how much share of voice do we have in the social sphere? So I would measure it by the growth of our fans and followers and those who are connected to our brand. So that would be our owned audience. And then the second piece of it is the earned media, which is how do we get advocacy, how do we get those who are connected to us to talk about us, right? And that's kind of activating them. And so that's where obviously engagement comes in, and using tools like Insightpool and others to increase our social share of voice in our marketplace.
Yeah, you touched on one point earlier there as well about saying, hey, it was great to be able to have a large amount of Facebook fans, and we're going to say that's enough. I think you touched on this a little bit, but saying now it seems like a lot of people are asking that question of who are those fans? Who do those people really make up, and what are they doing? How do you guys segment that out, and how do you say these are our super fans or something like that?
Yeah, so here's what we know at Cox. We know that our Facebook fans, we have over 1 million, who are also customers, have a net promoter score that's 32 points higher than our average customer. So basically we've determined that these are our best customers and these are our brand advocates, our fans. So really what we're looking for there is to activate them and to connect with them directly and have them share and amplify positive word of mouth. I'm in the cable industry, so typically there is a lot of negative word of mouth in our category, but there are also a lot of folks connected to our brand that are advocates. We have to activate them. And that's really a main goal. And then the second part of the question is, well, what does that do for your business? We know from our own research, 50% of customers who buy Cox services do so after talking to their friends. So think about word of mouth at scale, right? We have this large audience, not only on Facebook, but also on Twitter, people who are connected to us, people who aren't. How do we activate them around driving advocacy and ultimately getting their friends to consider Cox when making their purchase decision?
Yeah, it seems like in the cable industry, especially with you guys, that's a bit of an interesting space to be, because you've got the whole, hey, is this person somebody that loves their cable company and wants to talk about like, oh my God, Cox is amazing? Or is it that, 1% of time when, the service is down or it's outage or there's some kind of issues going on? How do you guys handle customer service, and how does that really tie back to the ROI?
That's a great question, Matt. Customer service in our category is critical. So what I like to say is we need fantastic customer service. We do that on our Cox Help Twitter handle. Of course, on Facebook, we have 50,000 customer care inquiries every single month that are being handled by a dedicated team. And I look at that as we need to take our detractors and the folks who need service and who are saying things about the brand or about the service, we need to turn those into either neutrals or promoters. And that's what care is. It's about addressing them. And then we need to then go after the folks who are neutrals or are promoters of our brand, and we need to amplify that advocacy. So care fits very neatly into that retention story. The second piece is then once we help them, many times they will give us a shout out. They'll be, hey, you guys are awesome. Thanks for resolving my issue. How do we amplify that? And how do we, as Brian Solis talks about, create a shareable customer experience in the age of the connected consumer?
Yeah, especially if you look at the level of emotion that somebody is going to have when you're angry or you're mad or something. It seems like that level of emotion is even higher than not caring at all. So that once you flip that, it seems like that's a huge impact for the brand, that, hey, now all of a sudden we're taking these negative experiences and turning them into positives.
It is absolutely true. When you think about when people are expressing their opinions and they're expressing how they feel on social, it's all about that emotion and that passion. And actually what you said is validated by our own research. What we found is that social media and talking to friends and seeing what their friends are saying about the brand is the #1 source of information around, is this a brand I can trust? Are they reliable? Do I want to do business with them? So while they might go to the provider's website or use Google to identify what are the features, what are the best prices, they're looking to social media and to what others are saying around that emotional connection. And that's where social media comes in.
Well, and I think that's great for you guys as a service provider too, because through social, you're able to activate all these people that otherwise are either not going to call the customer support line, or that you're really not going to be able to get at any other way. How does that look for you guys, and how do you really justify that, hey, we've now taken these people who have done something that they wouldn't otherwise do elsewhere?
Yeah, so I think that to answer that question, while the category is tough because it is very customer service centric, and as soon as your TV, internet, or phone goes down, you are really in a bad situation. Yeah. And it might not happen more than one time a year, or not even, but when it happens, it's tough. The good news is that we are also in the TV space, and we have access to all the best content you can imagine. People are passionate about what they love. They're passionate about entertainment. So we are really using that conversation around content. You think about the top shows on television: Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Homeland. I can go on and on. I can name 10 shows and cover about 80% of our fans. So what we do is we work closely with those content producers, and we use content as the conversation for driving conversation around our brand in a positive way.
So to take a step back and look at this again from the ROI perspective, I think for you guys on Cox, it seems like customer service is huge. Looking at what is that share of voice, what are people talking about, and how does that relate to the brand, as well as your traditional bottom line sales. How are we driving people down the funnel? When you take a step back and look across all these other different companies, how do you think that relates? What do you think is similar, and what is different across that?
What's similar about Cox is that we, just like every other brand, are trying to reach and connect as many consumers as possible to our brand and engage them, those who would have an interest in our services. And we use entertainment as the context for developing that relationship. People love Walking Dead, follow Cox to get the latest updates. But what's different about Cox is we also have an embedded customer base of several million. What that allows us to do is really mine the data of who these customers are. So when you think about it, we know what customers buy from us, we know where they live, we have basic information about their products and services and how much they pay. What social data gives us is the interest graph. What do they care about? So Matt, for example, let's say you're a fan of The Walking Dead. You might not have an interest if I were to say, hey, Matt, get Cox high-speed internet for $19.95 for 6 months. But if I did come to you and tweet to you or use that information, I know that you engage with us on social media around Walking Dead, I basically would say, hey, Matt, here's an exclusive piece of Walking Dead content. You would open that, and then we would make maybe a secondary offer, say, hey, Matt, get Cox internet to stream Walking Dead faster on your iPad. That changes the conversation.
Completely agree, and that's, again, what we like to really think about as social drip marketing and what that looks like across all these different subtle touch points. Because, again, like you said, if I say, hey, you want to buy something, let me shake it down for some money immediately, that might not be super receptive. But then if I get to the point where, hey, I actually have a relationship with the brand, I know what you guys are about, I know your core values, and then when it's relevant and when there's a need for me to really step in, yes, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And that's where we use tools like Insightpool, because what we can do is identify clusters of our social connections, our social audience that cares about certain things. So for example, using tools like yours, we were able to activate millions of consumers around the Mayweather pay-per-view fight. These are people who care about boxing, activate fight advocates, fight influencers, and then use that amplification to activate them to drive to a pay-per-view buy. So that's a good example there. But talking about ROI in general, look, at the end of the day, what my executives are looking for is how am I driving sales? How am I growing the bottom line? And what I'm seeing now in the space is we are looking to integrate our social efforts with our digital marketing efforts. So where can we connect our social marketing engagement tied to the broader digital campaigns around our banner ads, our SEO, to drive people to activate? And so what we're seeing is that, social is a key part of that. It's driving a lot of awareness, a lot of impressions, and now we're in a place where we're actually looking to measure the attribution of social to did that consumer buy or not.
Definitely, and really how you touch on the evolution of social as it relates to other marketing components. I think you'd agree with me that, for the past couple of years, it's been social, kind of lives in its own silo. It's, put off to the side, and the social team is doing their social thing. Moving forward, I think it really comes down to how does that integrate with your entire marketing strategy. So it's not social marketing, it's not this or that, it's just marketing, and that's simply one part of it.
Couldn't agree more. Social is now at the point where it needs to integrate not only with digital marketing, but all of marketing. So for example, Matt, no one ever asked the question, what's the ROI of that TV commercial that you just spent $1 million on? People just expect, oh, you're going to do TV commercials. But they do ask the question, what's the ROI of your social campaign? Because it's digital, they believe every aspect can be measured. And my thought on that is that absolutely, there are several components that can be measured. What are the impressions? What is the reach? How many people did you drive to a website? But at the same time, there's a lot of components of creating awareness, that emotional connection that can't directly be measured. And what we have to do in social is find a way to look at the whole picture and be holistic in our view of what is the value social is bringing to that particular goal.
No, I completely agree, and I think that's a great point. Where do you think we are in the entire life cycle of social being valued or undervalued in some cases as something as a billboard would be or a TV ad? How long do you think it's going to take for social to get on that same level?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that we are still in our adolescence phase. I think that social, if you look at 2013 was the year of starting to integrate social into other marketing channels. 2013, 2014 is really the year where social needs to measure its impact. And I think that it's up to people in roles like myself to be able to tell that story. I think what it's going to take is, our tools are maturing, but there's still, many aspects of social that these tools are still in their infancy in many cases, and they haven't matured to the point where they're integrating with other tools and other measurements. And so what I think it's important is that we have to be able to tell the story of social in the language of the business. And while it's great to talk about engagement, and we have social metrics that we need to look at to make sure that our ecosystem is healthy, we also have to be able to tell the rest of the business where social is driving it and be able to connect our reporting and metrics to the business metrics of the company. And I think 2014 is going to be a year when that is really starting to happen.
Absolutely, and I think that you especially, and really anybody right now that's working in social and leading those efforts, it's an incredibly fortunate position to be in, because if you look 10 years, 20 years down the road, and you say, hey, I think that, we're now matured in social. I think it's, something as standard as a billboard, or again, the other forms of media we talked about. Guys like you and really anybody in social now, you're part of that. You're helping shape that, and you're helping define in the future what that's really going to look like.
I don't think we'll be talking about social as a separate thing. I believe that the CMOs in 5 years and 10 years will be coming from social, because all brands will have to be social. Social will be leading how marketing is done. We're in the age where consumers know everything. You can't push and publish and change perceptions because consumers already know. So what we have to do is provide a transparent and shareable customer experience and make our brand social. And I believe social is going to permeate every aspect of a brand's marketing effort.
So to kind of wrap up, looking at, again, we've talked about a lot of the different definitions of ROI on social. For you guys specifically at Cox, how that applies across all other companies, and on a broader picture, where we are in that entire growth phase of social. You touched a little bit on 5 years, 10 years that your CMOs are going to be coming from social, that there's going to be more of a buy-in. Let's take that a little bit further, and let's say even 10 to 15 years, when you see social as that staple that's widely accepted, what does that look like? And do you think that ROI definition is going to be consistent every single place like it is in traditional media?
If I was able to predict where we would be 15 years from now, I think I'll be a very wealthy person. So it's pretty hard, given that social's only been around really 5 years in its current state, maturing. Regardless of what social networks will be dominant at the time, there's no going back, right? So I think we'll be talking about how we make everything social. Social will become really the de facto way of how brands market. And I don't think we'll be talking about a social ROI, we'll be talking about marketing ROI, and it will be driven by driving social actions. It will be driven by what people say about your brand and the stories that they say about your brand, and not by things such as, oh, that was a great Facebook campaign, or how many fans or followers. We can't continue to be on a path where, if you can think about where Facebook is going to, for me to reach 15, 20, 30% of my audience, I have to pay for that. We're going to be thinking about a place where brands own their audience. They will leverage social platforms, but it's going to be a situation where they have a direct social connection. And I think that's where brands will make their most impact, because we can't afford to continue to spend all this money to attract and grow our audience, and then spend a separate amount of bucket of money to then go and engage them. I think it's all going to be one and the same. Social will be driving that conversation with both your current customers and with potential customers. Matt, in the future, what social will do more than anything else, it's going to cause all brands to lift their customer experience to the point where they are authentic, they're transparent, and they're shareable. And at the end of the day, a shareable customer experience is what's going to drive growth in the future. If a brand cannot provide that, they will be gone. That's what social is going to do. And so marketing, customer service have all gotten blended together, and it's going to be great customer service and testimonials and advocacy that will drive future growth. So they are interlocked and connected. It's going to be about that, not about who shot the best commercial.
Absolutely. Adam, thanks for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate it. And looking forward to see what happens in the future.